Hi, everyone. I'm Kat, a licensed architect and product manager here at Hypar, the fastest way to create accurate, fully furnished space plans. We've been getting a lot of questions lately about how to use Hypar with your own layout standards, equipment, and furniture. So in this video, I'll show you how to quickly generate a few office test fit options for an existing building using client standards, imported Revit content, and our new library feature available to paid subscribers. With Hypar, you can collaborate online in real time, generate blocking plans, bubble diagrams, and full furniture test fits. You can bring in your furniture and equipment families or use Hypar defaults and export designs easily to PDF, Revit, and Rhino. And of course, you can switch between Imperial or Metric and into several languages. Let's dive in. For this test fit, we're using one of my favorite office buildings, a beautiful space designed by an architect firm called Parabola Architecture in California. We'll focus on reimagining this second floor. This is a floor with a large, open central area in the middle and more intimate window-lined spaces along the perimeter. Our goal here is to convert this office space from a traditional 5-day-a-week assigned seating model to a more hybrid workplace, prioritizing desk sharing and collaboration areas. Let's imagine that our client has specific room layouts with their own furniture and equipment in Revit that they want to use. We know many of you rely on proven layouts from past projects or work with clients who bring their own specific room layouts, furniture, and equipment. These standards can be provided as written rules, 2D CAD blocks, or in this case, full 3D assets ready for you to use. With Hypar, you can use, reuse, and remix standards and layouts and easily create new projects based on your previous work. Here's what our program looks like from our client. With Hypar, you can import your program directly into the software and track your progress. You typically don't need to follow a special template to import your program into Hypar. This Excel file is organized by space type. You'll also notice spaces like Team Zone and Agora that refer to client-specific layout standards. Let's import this program into Hypar by clicking Import Requirements in the top right and selecting the Excel file. For this import, I'll manually map my program columns. I'll designate program name to this column and add key details like required space count and areas. As I map my program and my columns, you'll notice the green fields shifting. These represent the data Hypar is bringing in. For example, Hypar automatically filters out headcount since it's not part of the list of required spaces. It also skips total because Hypar handles all calculation within the software. I've assigned colors here, but you don't have to have specific colors. Hypar will auto-assign colors for each space, and you can adjust those later on. Now, I'm ready to bring all these program requirements into Hypar, so I'll click Import Requirements. Let's say the client comes back with a change in the program after I've already imported it to Hypar. I can easily modify my requirements in two ways. If the change is small, I can click on the requirement in the right side panel and modify it manually like so. I can also change its color or even add additional requirements. I can also re-upload an updated program. Here, let's now choose version 2 of the sheet in the import menu. I've changed the color and the required count of several of my spaces using a spreadsheet program. Just a quick note, Hypar uses the name of the space to find what to update. So if one of my requirement name changes, I'll create a new requirement rather than replace the existing one. Let's add an underlay. Since I don't have a CAD background, I'll use a floor plan image from the architect's website. It's a little less precise, but good enough for what I need. To set the scale, I'll assume one of these doors is 3 feet. Holding Shift lets me keep the scale line ortho while I scale the underlay. In Hypar, you can import a PDF or CAD file as your underlay. With DXF or DWG files, you get the added benefit of snapping for higher precision. As a note, DWG import is a paid feature. Before we start planning, let's go back to our client standards. Let's bring some of those standards over and let's add them to our library. I'll select a few of these rooms in 3D, switch to 2D to include the room objects, and click Send Selection to Hypar. The average wait time for this depends mainly on the amount of different furniture families you have. So 1,000 different chairs will take a lot longer to export than the 1,000 of the same exact chair. Hypar converts furniture and equipment families into lightweight formats that keep models fast. I can use them in Hypar and then export them back into Revit as the same models, same families. Hypar also respects wall thickness from Revit and brings those into Hypar directly as well. If it's your first time using the Revit add-in, you'll need to authenticate your account. We have a separate tutorial for you to do that. While I'm waiting, I can always keep working in Hypar. A banner will appear when my rooms are ready and I can place them into my project. Once placed, these layouts are flexible. It is easy to adjust spaces and furniture is automatically sticky to walls or each other where it makes sense. I can also move furniture around to further adjust. Alternatively, I can import just furniture and then make and adjust my standard layouts in Hypar. I love the Vitra dancing wall, so I'm going to add that to my furniture library in Hypar. I've already downloaded the Revit family from Vitra's site and loaded it into my project. From there, I select the furniture and click Send Selection to Hypar. Once my Revit import is ready, I just click Place and add it to my canvas. Now, I've got some standard rooms and a piece of furniture that I'd like to add to my library. Libraries are a paid feature, and a shared library is enabled when you buy multiple licenses. We have a separate tutorial on libraries that you should check out for more info. I'll add these spaces all at once to my personal library by selecting them and then selecting the 3 dots in the Spaces capsule menu. I'll click Library and then Add to your library. To find my spaces, I can click on the Spaces button on the bottom toolbar and then Library. I've already added a few additional standards from this client to my library, and I can delete these on my canvas for now. I'll also add our dancing wall, single piece of furniture, to my library by selecting it and then selecting the 3 dots in the Furniture's capsule menu. I'll click Library and then Add to your library. I can access my furniture and equipment library from the Furniture button on the bottom toolbar and by navigating to Your Library. Now that we have our program loaded, our underlay set, and our standards ready to go, I'll go ahead and add a building. Since we're only working on the 2nd level, I'm just going to add 1 building with 1 level. Next, I'll add some grid lines. I can do this by adding a single grid line manually like this, or by using the Planning Grid tool and converting those lines to grid lines. I'll go ahead and make all my grid lines. All right, I've gone ahead and added all my grid lines following the original plan, and now I'm ready for columns. I'll add a single column at the intersection of my grid lines. I'll then adjust it to match my existing plan. Then I'll accept a suggestion to add the same column everywhere 2 grid lines intersect. This helps me avoid manually adding a column to each intersection. In this case, there might be intersections where I don't want a column, so I'll remove those. One thing to note, if you move a grid line, the columns will tag along. I've added the remainder of our grid lines and added some spaces as existing to remain. Now, we're ready to start blocking out our plan. Since collaboration is the priority in this building, let's start by dropping in open collaboration zones. When you drag a space from the metrics panel, it comes in with an area lock and walls by default. You can always unlock areas to edit freely, as well as toggle walls on or off. I'll make the space 20 by 30 by typing in dimensions. Next, I'll add an open office touchdown space. Basically, that's some desks for people to use during the open office collab. Just below that, I'll drop in personal storage. Now, let's block out some of the more public areas in the floor plan. At the bottom left, I'm going to add the Agora and Team Zone spaces. This time, instead of dragging a space from the metrics panel, let's add those from my library. I'll just grab them and drop them in here. They are named exactly the same as my requirements, so my requirements immediately recognize and track them. If they were named something else, I could always select the spaces and reassign them using their cancel menu. I'll expand the team zone a bit and add a few high-back lounge chairs and a small end table from the default furniture library. Let's drop in a medium public meeting room and resize it over here. Let's also take a look at our suggestions on the left side of our screen. We have a few suggestions for meeting room layouts. The one with the library icon is coming directly from our library. I can hover over it and see additional details. Suggestions come from a few places. They can come from your library, from default layouts we've created for you with default furniture, and from layouts that already exist in your project. Let's say I want to use my library meeting room, but tweak that layout. Maybe remove the end chairs so the room seats 8 instead of 9. Once I do that, and I'll go ahead here and add another meeting room without any furniture first, Hypar treats my new 8-chair meeting room as a new suggestion. I can click to accept this new suggested layout, or go to the capsule menu, click Layout, Copy Layout From, and select another space to pull the layout from. In this way, Hypar gets smarter as you design, surfacing layouts from your standards or layouts you've used before so you can reuse and remix them. Let's go ahead and actually mirror this room. Let's bring over a library space and snap the wall midpoints to the grid line. A quick tip, snapping in Hypar is zoom dependent. So if you're trying to snap to something like a midpoint, zoom in and out until it locks to what you need. Here, I want my walls to snap to the midpoint instead of the inner or outer edges. Now, I see 2 standard layout options for this library, and I'll choose the one that is for my standards library. Now that I've started to add furniture, let's go ahead and accept a layout from one of our 2 standards for our open collaboration zones. And let's add one more of those vitriol walls as a flexible divider between the neighborhoods from our library in the toolbar below. For our touchdown open office space, let's accept this desk layout, but move the furniture around a bit to fit in a few more desks. I'm selecting multiple desks by holding down the Shift key and box selecting. I can also use the multi-select tool in the bottom toolbar. Depending on the stage of your design, you may be adding furniture, or you may be doing simple space planning blocking. In Hypar, you can do both. And different conversations are going to need different levels and types of visualization. Personally, I love diagram mode, which you can toggle in the top right. It's great if you're still early in that design process and keeping things pretty abstract. You can also design in diagram mode if that's your vibe. Lastly, you can hide furniture. Let's say you've planned out all your furniture layouts, but really want to focus a client conversation on something a bit more abstract, like adjacencies. You can easily toggle furniture on and off for that. Let's build a team neighborhood we can reuse and remix along the perimeter of this building. I'll start by dropping in a small open office space and accepting one of the suggested desk layouts. Then I'll remove the walls, unlock the space, and start stretching it out. As I stretch, you'll see Hypar update the desk layout suggestions in real time. I'll accept this one and adjust the back-to-back spacing to be 3 feet. I do that by first box selecting, holding down Shift and click dragging my selection box, and then typing in my desired dimension. You can play with desk layouts back and forth to get what you need. Next, let's add a few phone booths. I'm imagining these as modular pod-style phone booths. I'm going to drag and drop one of these and adjust its wall thickness to be thinner since it's a prefabricated solution. I'll then use a copy dot to make another copy. I'll accept a suggestion here for furniture in the booth, and I'm going to accept the fit to space suggestion since it fits my desk and chair, which is my intent. If you hover over a requirement in your program list, any placed space will darken on the canvas so you know where it is. You can also search for a specific requirement in that panel. Let's bring in personal storage spaces plus a medium lounge, and I'll go ahead and accept a suggested layout for the lounge space and adjust its size. I'm playing around with what sort of furniture sessions I get depending on the size. Once I find one that I like, I can adjust it as needed. Let's add a bit more furniture to this lounge. It's really popular right now to design these sort of team neighborhoods. They're essentially clusters of spaces with dedicated desks, phone booths, and even full rooms for specific teams. All right, that's starting to look like a really great base neighborhood layout. Now, let's use Hypar's desk automations to lay out some more open office desking near the windows. And this is going to be ones where it is kind of hot desking spaces. I'll grab an open office space from the panel, unlock it, remove the walls, and reshape it a little bit. If you've labeled the space as open office, Hypar will automatically start suggesting layouts for desks. But I actually want a specific size of desk and chair, so I'll go ahead and add those from my furniture library. I'll grab this L-shaped desk and this office chair and place them in my space. Hypar will use that desk and chair combination and start to offer suggestions for layouts. You can adjust spacing and play around with suggestions until you get something you like. I also want the desks to be in a different orientation, so I'll delete a few desks, rotate a cluster, and now when I click Hypar's suggestions, I get layouts aligned with that new orientation. And of course, it's probably not going to get it right the first time, but I like going back and forth with suggestions and spacing and manual placement until I get something I like. And clicking on the space itself gives me a live desk count. We've noticed some planners use different approaches to laying out desks that's worth showing here. Instead of one large space with many desks and chairs, they define each space as a single workstation. So let's set aside this current desk layout and create a new requirement called workstation. Let's drag in a block and adjust its size to be 6 by 6. And let's accept this desk chair combo as a suggestion and then move it a little bit. We can now make multiple copies by clicking on the arrow in the copy dot, the arrow array, and dragging and using the move and mirror tools to make little 3 or 6 packs where we want them. I'll keep my original single space desk layout, but this shows how flexible Hypar really is. I can adapt it to match my workflows and my preferences and what makes the most sense for my industry and for my projects. Let's start wrapping this plan up by adding a few project hub or war rooms. These are meeting rooms you can book for days instead of just hours. We've already got a standard loaded for those, so I'll go ahead and add them from my library. Since these are existing rooms, we know their wall thickness, so I'll go ahead and change those wall thicknesses on Hypar. I'll click on the wall I want to change and type in the exact thickness. Let's say these are made with prefabricated wall systems, and the walls here are exactly 4 inches, with one side having a 6-inch wall. Up until this point, we haven't added any doors, so let's go ahead and add a door for our hub room here. To add a door, click on the door button on the bottom toolbar and snap a door to the hub room. If I stretch or move my space, the door will tag along with it. And I can always change the door size and type by clicking on the door itself in its capsule menu. As always, Hypar works best when you're actively zooming in and out. So if you're looking for a specific dimension, like this interior wall to door jamb dimension, it's best to zoom in way in and more dimensions will appear for you. Something I really like is that doors automatically light up red and alert me if there's a conflict, like if there's a chair in the way of the swing. I can always click on the door and accept the conflict if it's something I know is permitted. The spaces here in the middle are double height spaces, so I'll select multiple spaces by holding down Shift and clicking. Then I'll switch to 3D to stretch these up and make them double height. I can orbit, grab the top edge, and pull up another story for all 3 of them at once. Now, I'll select all of these spaces and copy-paste them into the other 3 quadrants. You can start to imagine a team booking out one of these zones and working together for the day. To further adjust level heights, I'll click on the 2D view, then on Edit Levels in the drop-down. This gives me a view where I can further adjust heights. Let's make my level heights a bit bigger. Let's indicate that this public meeting room is wheelchair compliant. If you're a paid Hypar subscriber, You can use clearances to indicate this. Just click on the space, then hit Clearance. That adds a clearance directly to the room. The default shape is a 5-foot turning circle, which works perfectly here, so I'll leave it as is. But you can always adjust the shape or size if you need to. What's cool is that Hypar's clearances are live. You'll notice that the clearance turns bright red if there's something in that clearance, like a chair. And like doors, we can always accept a clash if we need to. And finally, I'll add a dimension from the bottom toolbar to indicate that it's 5 feet. It's speedrun time, so I'll add a few more doors, a few more spaces, and some touch-ups and get this plan done. All right, this is starting to look really good. Now I want to create one more design option. If you've got a Hypar license, you can make options on the fly. Let's create one where the middle 4 quadrants are also neighborhoods instead of open collaboration zones. I'll hit the plus button to add an option, and just like that, I get a copy of my current layout. Now, I'll remove the collab spaces in the center and start adding in a few more team neighborhoods. Let's add a few more desks, phone booths, a lounge, and some personal storage. Then I'll make 3 more copies to fill out the space. Let's switch up the lounge furniture so they don't look the same and accept but remix some of our suggestions. I think this spot gets a lot of natural light, so I'm also adding a lot more plants and a couple of mobile whiteboards. I can flip between options and each one keeps its own metrics. I can also adjust program requirements independently between options. All right, let's talk about metrics. I want to know how many desks are in this plan. I select everything and look at the bottom right. This panel gives me real-time live info about what's selected, including counts like desks and area metrics. Speaking of live metrics, if a space has a target area, like this Agora, you'll see the target and actual area in the space tag. In my requirements panel, I can track count by type. And if I want to dig deeper, I can export all of this into a spreadsheet. Here's what that looks like. I get areas, counts, and even deviation percentages if I've set target program areas. I also get desk and seat counts in more detail. Lastly, I get metrics for each individual space in a separate tab. I can then use the spreadsheet to further filter and visualize my data. I've already mentioned different ways to visualize my plan, such as diagram mode and toggling furniture on and off. I can also switch between perspective and orthographic 3D views. And if I have multiple levels, this exploded axon button is really helpful. I also really like using walkthrough to get a better sense of navigation and scale in my designs. Let's jump into PDF export from the main menu. In PDF mode, you can choose one of 3 simple title block templates, change your sheet size and scale, and change the size of your tags, including removing them entirely. I've been working mostly in feet and inches, but it's important to note that in the top menu, you can always change your units to metric. Doing so also changes the kinds of sheets that are available to you in PDF export. The last thing I'll do is bring this entire model into Revit. I've already downloaded and installed the free Revit add-in from Hypar. If you haven't yet, we have a separate tutorial for you to check out on how to do that. I've opened a brand new Revit project, but you can always use your own templates. From the Add-ins tab, I click Load Project, then navigate to the project I want, including the option I want to load. And there it is. Walls come in automatically, joined at the correct thickness. Room boundaries are set. Grids are placed. Room objects and columns are created. And all my furniture families are exactly as they were when I first uploaded them into Hypar. That's it. If you have suggestions on what you'd like to see in future videos or what you'd like to see in the product itself, feel free to drop a comment here or send feedback directly to us by clicking on the avatar at the bottom left and selecting Send Feedback to Hypar. In this video, we laid out one of my favorite office buildings using some client standards and brought it back into Revit in less than 1 hour. We also used clearances, layout suggestions, libraries, and neighborhoods to speed up our space planning. I hope you had fun. I definitely did. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, we can't wait to see what you build.